Hello friends, I hope you all are doing well and staying safe at your own place. I, CA Pujin Kapadia, welcome you all on my today's lecture on the subject Mercantile Law. As you all are aware, we had started with the topic of capacity of parties to contract. That is, whether the parties are competent enough to enter into valid contract or not. We are going to deal that with that particular topic in this chapter. It is basically under the Indian Contract Act 1872. Let's quickly take a recap and all the points that we had covered till date. First was the capacity of the parties, which is being mentioned under section 11, like who all are eligible to enter into a contract, under which there are three main categories. You should be major, you should be of sound mind, and you should not be disqualified from contracting. Second, the most important question that I told you from the viewpoint of your examination that we had already started with since last two lectures, provisions of the Indian Contract Act with respect to minor, under which we had covered 6 points till now. Let's look at them quickly. Firstly, I had discussed who is minor. So basically under section 3 of Indian Majority Act 1875, it has been defined that any person who has completed age of 18 years will be considered as major. So if his age is below 18 years, he will be termed as minor. However, this limit is of 21 years in the following two exceptions. First is when the guardian for the minor is appointed by the court of law. That is, if an caretaker is being appointed for the minor by the court, then we are going to take into consideration 21 years. And if minor's property is taken over by the court for the purpose of management. So under these two cases, they are the exception, and we are going to look at 21 years instead of 18 years. First point is any agreement that I had entered with the minor is void ab initio, which means it is not having any kind of legal existence, legal validity. It is null and void from the very beginning it is entered into. Important name of the case, Mohori Bibi versus Dharmodas Ghose. Second was minor can be promissory or beneficiary, which means though you know that any agreement entered with the minor is void ab initio, but at the same time, if you are entering into any agreement under which the minor is going to be benefited, that is, he is made beneficiary, then such agreements can be considered as valid agreement. Third is no ratification. That is, once if you have entered into any agreement when you are minor, you cannot make it officially valid after you attain your majority. So once the agreement is void ab initio, it is null and void forever. You cannot ratify the agreement that you had entered already when you were minor. Next is claim for necessaries. Generally, minor is not having any kind of liability, but yes, he is liable to pay out of his property. That is, if he is having any kind of property, then he is having liability to pay for the necessaries. Now, what is necessaries? Necessaries is basic food, clothing, shelter, education, medical facilities that is being provided by someone else to minor or to the person who was supposed to be taken care of by the minor. So if minor is having any kind of property, he will be held liable to pay for the necessaries. However, if the minor is not having any kind of property, he cannot be made personally liable. Fine. So this liability arises only when minor is having any kind of property. Next is no estoppel. First of all, let us understand what is estoppel. Estoppel is basically the person who by his words or conduct makes someone believe that he is the right person to enter into the transaction. Now, if minor with his conduct represents that his age is of 18 years, actually the age of the minor is below 18 years, but just by his conduct, he is making the opposite party believe that his age is more than 18 years. Now, on relying by this activity, the another person is entering into a contract with the minor, considering he is of the age of above 18. In this particular case also, minor has the right to claim his minority as a defense, and he would not be liable for any of the contract liabilities which is being entered into. So yes, even though he has been estoppeled, he can claim his minority as a defense. The last point that we had covered in the last lecture was no restitution or compensation. That is, minor is not under any obligation to return back the benefit he has received under the contract. because we all know that any contract entered with the minor is void ab initio, which is null and void. So actually he was not entitled to receive anything. However, if he has received any kind of benefit, he is under no obligation to return the same. But yes, if he has done any fraudulent representation, that is, if he has done something wrong, then he would be held liable to return the benefit he has received by his representation. I hope I'm clear with all the 6 points that we had covered till date in this particular talk. Let's move ahead with the next one. 7th point is no specific performance. Under this point, I have written in the first line, there can be no specific performance of the agreements entered into by a minor as they are void ab initio. So basically what they're trying to say over here is, since any agreement which is being entered into with the minor is void ab initio, you cannot ask minor for any kind of specific performance. That suppose even minor has promised to do anything, you cannot ask for the performance or for the fulfillment of that particular promise. Why? Because your agreement is void ab initio, that is, it is not having any kind of legal validity. Second point is, if a person who was minor actually, after attaining the majority, pays a debt incurred during his minority, he cannot subsequently bring a suit for the refund of this amount. Now let's take an example. When I was minor, Mr. X has given me rupees 1000. Now, on attaining majority, I feel I should repay my debt of rupees 1000 to Mr. X. So what I'm doing, I'm going to Mr. X and repaying him rupees 1000. Now this is something that I had done voluntarily because I felt like paying off my debt. Now subsequently, I cannot file a suit or file a case against Mr. X that what I had paid him was actually the effect of the agreement which was entered at the time of my minority. No, I cannot file a suit if I am paying anything after attaining my majority, because after attaining my majority, I had paid from my own perception, from my own viewpoint. So basically, Mr. X cannot be held liable for this particular activity. In short, what I want to say over here is, no one can ask for a specific performance to the minor, but if minor willingly or voluntarily pay off his debt after attaining majority, he cannot file a suit subsequently to ask back that particular amount. I hope I'm clear with this particular slide. Let's move to the next point. Point number 8, no insolvency. First line that I have written over here is, a minor is incapable of contracting debts, so he cannot be adjudged as an insolvent. We all know that if you want to enter into a valid contract, the first condition of section 11, the very first slide that we took today, was you should be major. That is, you should be of the age of 18 years or above. You cannot be minor. So basically, minor is incapable to enter into contract, to enter into contracting any of the debts. So since he is not actually eligible to enter into a contract, we cannot have any liability in his name. So what they are trying to say over here is, minor can never be adjudged or declared as insolvent. He cannot be adjudged as insolvent even where there are dues payable from the properties of the minor. Now sometimes we know that minor has certain liabilities. Minor need to pay for its necessary or for any other thing from his own property. However, he is having liability to pay off from the property. Still, he cannot be declared as an insolvent. So the crux lies over here as that minor is the person who can never be adjudged as an insolvent, no matter he is liable to pay any debt, any due out of his own property. Next one, that is point number 9 that I have stated over here, is minor as a partner. Now we are going to talk about the position of a minor as a partner of any partnership firm. First question is whether he can enter into a partnership. So the first point that I have stated over here is, a minor cannot become a partner in a firm generally. So generally, you cannot enter a minor into a partnership agreement. However, there is an exception, but he can be admitted into the benefits of partnership in an existing firm with the consent of all existing partners. Just let's recall what we had studied under the head of partnership. We know that the liability of the partners are unlimited. That is, if there is a profit, it is going to be shared by them in the profit sharing ratio. But however, if there is loss, they are going to bond the loss in the same ratio. Now, what they are telling over here is generally you cannot enter minor into the partnership agreement. However, you can make him the partners in profits only. That is, if you are agreeing, all the existing partners of the partnership firm are agreeing to enter a minor into a firm just to share profit. So if there is a loss, minor is not going to bond that particular loss. However, he is just entered into the partnership to bear the profit. In short, if this is the case and if all the existing partners are agreeing to these terms, then yes, minor can be made partners for profit only. But generally, minor cannot enter into the partnership agreement. He can only be made partners in benefit only, as a result of which we can say that yes, if all the existing partners are giving the consent that minor can be entered just to share the benefits of this partnership firm, then he can become a partner. I'm just giving you a minute, friends. Just go through both the points that I have stated on this slide. That is no insolvency and position of the minor as a partner. I hope you are through with both the points that I have mentioned on this particular slide. So in the 8th point, we had studied that no matter what, minor cannot be adjudged as an insolvent. So minor can never become insolvent, never be declared as insolvent, even though he is having any liability to be paid off out of his own property. And in the point number 9, we had understood that generally minor cannot be entered as a partner into the partnership firm. However, if all the existing partners are agreeing, they are giving the consent that they are ready to enter a minor to share the benefits of that particular business only, then minor can be made the partner to that particular partnership firm. Let's move to the next point. Point number 10. It is minor as an agent. Now, first of all, I had mentioned what is the meaning of agent. Agent is just a connecting link between principal and the third party who actually are the parties to the contract. So whenever we talk about the agency, we know that agency is the person, agent is the person who is actually carrying on the business on behalf of the principal. So basically, when any contract or any transaction is being effected, who are the basic parties to the contract? It would be the principal and it would be the person who has entered into the contract with the agent. So we can say agent is just the face of the principal. He is not the actual party to the contract. He is merely the connecting link between the same. As a result of which I have mentioned in the second point, so minor may act as agent because in actual terms he is not the party to the contract. So there is a possibility that minor can be made an agent. He can function as an agent. Why? Because over here minor is not the party to the contract. He is just the person who is connecting two parties to the contract. As a result of which he is not incompetent to enter for this agency purpose, and yes, minor can be made an agent. So just understand over here, agent is someone who is not directly party to the contract, who is just connecting two parties to the contract. And so the capability of the minor is not questioned as an agent. So yes, he may act as a agent into the contract. Let's move to the next point, that is point number 11. Minor along with major. Let's understand what is written over here. When a contract is entered into by a minor and a major jointly, minor will not be liable. However, contract can be enforced against the major if his liability can be separately ascertained. Now, what they are trying to say in this point, let's discuss this. They are saying that if you are entering into a contract, on one hand there is a party, and on the other hand there are two parties. Fine. So basically there is one person who is minor and there is another person who is major, who is actually entering into the contract. For example, let's take an example. Mr. X is a major, Mr. Y is a minor. Now Mr. X and Mr. Y, who is a major and a minor, jointly promises to pay rupees 1 lakh to Mr. Z. So Mr. Z is the opposite party. But who is promising over here? Mr. X and Mr. Y jointly. Now we all know that any agreement or any contract entered with the minor is void ab initio. That is, it is not having any kind of legal existence. So in this particular case, there won't be any liability on Mr. Y because he is a minor. However, Mr. X will be liable separately if the liability can be separately defined. As a result of which, what they are trying to say over here is minor will never be held liable for any of the liability, but major would be held liable for his liability if we can easily adjudge or we can easily decide, separate out the liability of that major person. In short, what is the position of the minor? Even if he is entering into a contract jointly with the major, minor will not be having any kind of liability. So it is the same. Minor is one who is not having to have any kind of liability because any agreement entered with the minor is null and void, which is not having any kind of legal validity. But yes, major would be held liable for the same. I hope I am clear with the same. I just request you all to go through both the points, point number 10 and point number 11. Well, I hope you are clear with both the points that I have stated over here. Yes? Good. Let's move to the next point. Point number 12. Position of the minor's guardian. Now, who is guardian? It can be the parent of the minor or any person who is appointed as the caretaker of that particular minor. So now we are going to discuss like what is the position of that particular person who is the guardian of the minor. First point is an agreement by a minor is void. We all know this thing. But an agreement by his guardian on his behalf is valid provided the obligations undertaken are within the powers of the guardian. This is the most important thing which is supposed to be understood by all of us. What they have written in this particular point, that firstly they had stated if we are entering into any agreement with the minor, it is void ab initio. Fine, it is not having any kind of legal existence. But at the same time, if I am entering into any agreement with the guardian of that minor, fine, who is entering into agreement with me on behalf of minor within the powers which are assigned to that guardian, then such agreement will be considered as valid. Let's take an example. Suppose I am running the school and the guardian of the minor is coming to me and entering into a contract to get his son or the minor admitted into my school, and for that he is going to pay me the fees. Now here guardian has entered into an agreement with me. Who am I? I am a school, fine. So he has entered into the agreement with me to make an admission of his minor and paying me a certain amount of fees in a form of consideration, so that I'm going to teach him and giving him the admission in my school. Now in this particular case, is the minor who is entering into the contract? Answer is no. It is minor's guardian. Whether minor's guardian is acting on behalf of minor? Yes, because actually the schooling is of the minor. And whether it is within the powers of the guardian? Yes, because we had already discussed at the time of studying the necessaries that education is also one of the necessities for the minor. So in this particular case, this agreement will be considered as a valid agreement. So what I want to say over here is minor cannot directly enter into an agreement, but any guardian on behalf of minor can enter into an agreement if he is acting within the powers of the guardian. I hope I'm clear with this particular point. Next point is the guardian can function only within the doctrine of legal necessity or benefit. So what they're trying to say over here is guardian cannot go beyond the limit. They can only perform under the doctrine, that is under the rule of legal necessity. That is how much it is necessary for the minor, he can do the contract, but over and above he cannot. So basically you can take care of the necessities of the minor and enter into all the contracts which are relevant at that particular point of time, which are actually needed from the viewpoint of minor. But you cannot enter into the contract which are outside the boundary of the legal necessity. I have taken an example so you may be more clear of this particular point. As stated in the last point, example, contract to purchase the house entered on behalf of and for the benefit of the minors by the mother is a valid contract. Fine. So here what I'm doing, I'm actually entering into a contract to purchase house. I'm purchasing for my minor children as a mother. Then this contract is actually entered by the guardian on behalf of the minor for the benefit of the minor within the powers of the guardian. So this will be considered as a valid contract. I hope I am clear with this position of minor's guardian. So what you guys are supposed to remember over here, first, minor cannot enter into the agreement, but yes, minor's guardian can enter into the agreement on behalf of the minor if that agreement is for the benefit of the minor and is within the legal limits of the guardian. I hope I'm clear. Just giving you a moment, take a quick view on this particular slide also. Well, I hope you are clear with this particular point also. So let's take a look at the last point of this particular answer. That is your 13 point, 13 provision of the Indian Contract Act with respect to minor. What is the name of this point? It is liability for torts. Now this word may be new for you all. So in the first point, I had explained you the meaning. What is tort? Tort means a wrongful act or an infringement of any right leading to legal liability. So basically, if I am doing something which is wrong, or if I am breaking any of the rights, then what I'm doing? I'm doing this which is actually going to lead me to the legal liability. That is, it is going to make me legally liable for that wrong act or breaking that particular rule or breaking that particular right. Such thing, such wrongful act, such infringement of right is known as tort. Fine. So I hope I'm clear with this particular word. And the second point I had stated, the privilege of minority is only to be used as a shield and not as a sword. So what this line is saying us is that you can use your minority as a defense, but at the same time, you cannot use your minority to harm someone. So you cannot do bad to someone just on the basis that you are a minor. So what they're trying to say over here is you cannot enter into any wrongful act, you cannot break any of the rights, you cannot break any of the rules which may lead to the legal liability, thereby saying that you cannot use your minority as a sword to harm someone or to do wrong something to someone, but you can just use as a defense. Here I had stated one scenario so that you can be easily clear like what I want to say by this particular point. Let's look at the third point. H, who is a minor, entered into contract to hire a horse for riding. So H is the person who is a minor who is entering into a contract to take horse on a rent. Why? Because he want to ride the same. B, who is the owner of the horse, gave specific instruction not to jump it. So B, who was basically the owner of that particular horse, has given the specific instruction that you may take this horse on hire, but you cannot make it jump. So don't make my horse jump. Now what did H did? H lent this horse to a friend who actually jumped it, and as a result of which horse died. So in this particular scenario, what we are getting to know is H had taken a horse on a hire. B, the person who was the owner of that horse, has given him the specific instruction that you may hire this horse, but at the same time, you are not supposed to make him jump. But what did H did? H has lent this horse to his friend who has jumped the horse, as a result of it the horse passed away. So basically he has done something which is wrong. He was knowing that he was not supposed to do the same, but still he has done that. He has broken that particular instruction, as a result of which it was held that H was liable as object was riding and not jumping. I hope I am clear with this. So generally, we had studied till now that liability of minor is not there in any of this scenario. But however, if there is a matter of tort, if he is doing something wrongful, fine, then he will be held liable for that particular action. So friends, with this, I hope you are clear with this particular answer. Trust me, friends, this is one of the most important question from the viewpoint of examination. If you will go through the previous exam papers, then you will get to know that this question is being asked on the repeated basis. So I request all the students to prepare this answer in a wonderful manner. With this, I, CA Pujan Kapadia, thank you all for your patient listening and definitely hope to see you soon in my upcoming lecture. Thank you, friends.